spending all this money in the building, it's changing the south. Chintzy.
There we go, thank you. I missed that. And I just
I don't know, maybe it's an impression.
grab my minutes and I'll be right back.
First time I walked in, I didn't know what the impression was. It's permanent. It's not permanent. It's temporary. The first thought that came to mind is this is a temporary, something else is going on somewhere else until they can get it.
Unless that is the case and they haven't announced it yet, or maybe they're going to take that moratorium.
That would make that actually make more sense.
Yeah.
And maybe they just leave this for us. For 2 days. That would be more proper decorum for the city council.
I think so.
These are for the committee minutes. You're on one of the top first Tim's here.
She's reserving all for growth.
All for me.
And friends. And Mayor Pro Tem Martinez is here. Mark. Yes.
I'm gonna go grab those.
Mayor General, you're very few and far between.
How you feeling, Nancy? Right, not feeling good. Like, you want sick.
Hello, Nate. Yeah, we do.
Open mic.
The mics go live.
Oh, nice. Alrighty. So how are you guys doing?
Wonderful.
Exceptional. Wonderful and exceptional.
How was your vacation?
Delightful. We're gonna go with a different, different synonym.
Right? I just got back on Saturday from mine.
It was probably weather-wise the best 2-week period I've had up there in a decade.
Hey.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a water boy. Anytime he gets to nothing because he never shows up. Somebody.
Yeah.
Well, we all got it.
You're still adjusted. Yeah. No rain. No big storm. No smoke. With all the fires that were running. The rest of it isn't.
You can't say everything we're saying up here.
Yeah, I've always assumed that. Nicole. Can I go to that?
I'm going to call the regular session of the Beaumont Planning Commission to order at 6 p.m.
I'll talk to you after.
What did you need to say, Bob? Did you have a question?
No, sir, I did not.
You want me to do roll
Join me in.
call? Oh, I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
can do roll call.
do the roll.
after.
Do the
Okay.
roll call.
Commissioner Barr,
Here.
Commissioner Tinker,
Here.
Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Vice Chair St. Martin,
Yes.
and Chairman Voss is absent tonight.
Please join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Any adjustments to the agenda?
I have none.
Thank you. Do we have any conflicts? Mr. Smith?
That'll be a rare.
Any one person may address the Planning Commission on any matter not on this agenda. If you wish to speak, please fill out a public comment form provided at the back table and give it to the city clerk. There is a 3-minute time limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing of time to another person. State law prohibits the commission from discussing or taking actions brought up by your comments. Are there any requests to speak?
Not for this item.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, who are these people sitting there?
Would you like to introduce yourself?
We'll get to that when we get to the item.
Okay.
I promise.
Approval of minutes dated July 10th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Tinker, second by Commissioner Smith.
Commissioner Barr,
Yes.
Commissioner Tinker,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chair St. Martin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 2, conditional use permit 2018-0020. You're up.
Thank you. Good evening, Commission. You have before you for your consideration this evening, conditional use permit 2018-0020 for a large family daycare at 1594 Chinook Street. The municipal code of the City of Beaumont requires the approval of a conditional use permit by the Planning Commission for large family daycare centers. The purpose of this requirement is to establish a formal review of such proposals, which involves conducting a public hearing and giving written notice to property owners within a 300-foot radius of the site. Through the conditional use permit process, the Planning Commission has the opportunity to determine if the proposed use or the location of that use is compatible with the surrounding uses, or through conditions can be made compatible. The Planning Commission can either deny or approve the proposal and may establish conditions of approval for the business operations to ensure that it will not be a detriment to the community. The applicant currently operates a small family daycare at this location, which allows for up to 6 children. The applicant has filed a conditional use permit application to expand the in-home daycare for up to 14 children. The home is located in the Sundance community, which is zoned specific plant area and is a conforming use. The proposed application is exempt from the provisions of CEQA. The nature of this project is childcare. The business would be in operation 5 days a week, Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. The daycare utilizes indoor and outdoor areas on the first floor. The indoor area consists of kitchen, great room, and bedrooms. The backyard and pool areas are under construction and are anticipated to be completed in September. When completed, the pool area will be secured separately from the rest of the backyard. Staff feels that the available interior and exterior play areas should be suitable for a large home daycare facility. However, a final determination of adequacy of the site is made by the State of California as part of its facility licensing. As with all applications of this type, concerns typically exist with compatibility of a single-family residential neighborhood. The consideration of this use functioning without impact to the neighborhood should be evaluated in the public hearing process with neighborhood input. With a large family daycare, the requested scale of operations may potentially result in concerns including noise, increased activity levels, and parking and circulation problems associated with drop-off and pickup traffic. Staff received 2 phone calls from individuals who received the public hearing notice expressing their concern about the potential for increased traffic and noise. One of the individuals also indicated that the North Sundance CC&Rs do not allow for a business to take place in the home. The applicant is aware of the CC&Rs and will work with the HOA as needed. Staff has also added a condition that there shall be 2 driveway parking spaces available at all times to accommodate the pickup and drop-off traffic. Staff feels 2 driveway parking spaces would be sufficient for this facility. Additionally, the applicant offers pickup and drop-off service, which alleviates some of the traffic. To date, the city has not received any complaints related to the existing daycare currently operating at the residence. As with all in-home daycare facilities, these businesses are subject to State of California licensing, inspection, and monitoring. The city's role is limited to land use appropriateness, while all operational matters are handled by the state. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission hold a public hearing And approve conditional use permit 2018-0020, subject to the proposed conditions of approval. Staff is available if you have any questions, and the applicant is also present in the audience.
Thank you. Do we have questions of staff?
Do we have any others? I know we have a few of these in the, I guess, South Sundance neighborhood. Do we have any others in the North Sundance neighborhood at this point?
I don't think we've had any come through in the last 5 or 6 months. I'm not sure if there are any others.
We wouldn't get any small, so we
Right.
wouldn't know
Right.
for sure, but
Right.
I
Be
don't
large on
believe
it.
we've had any of the large. I think we had, yeah, just the south side is all I could think of as well.
Okay.
Is the location of the home in a cul-de-sac or through street?
No.
Through street. Okay.
Any other questions?
Very close proximity to the new school out there.
I'm going to open the public hearing at 6:07 PM. Will the applicant please come up to the microphone? State your name and address, please.
Alma Sanchez, 1594 Chinook Street, Beaumont, California.
Any questions of the applicant?
How long have you have a small family daycare now? How long has that been in operation?
9 months now.
9 months?
9 months.
Have you received any issues or correspondence notice from the
No,
HOA neighbors?
it's really quiet. Traffic is very minimum because I do most of the pickup and drop off. So I keep it at a real low traffic. There's no problems, no issues whatsoever.
Where do you see like occupancy going to on this? You know, it's above 5 to 14, I think.
Well, it's not like I'm going to have all of them at once. It's going to vary throughout the day, the hours that kids get there and get picked up. It's not going to be all children at one time either. So that'll minimize any problem.
Commissioner Tinker?
No, I have no questions.
Commissioner Barr?
No questions.
How many children do you have there now?
I have 8. I'm licensed for 8 right now.
And you have enough staff to,
Yes, I have a helper. She's also, she has to have everything like fingerprints and backgrounds and all that. So I have
how are you safeguarding those children with that construction going on?
well, everything is fenced to the side so that they're not even near that area. It's in the back of the yard. So it's all protected, temporary fence, because we're doing until the construction is done, we're already, this coming week, we're putting a permanent fence. So everything's almost done.
Okay, because when I drove by there today, I saw all those blocks in your driveway.
Yes, those are the pavers. They're
Pavers.
putting those pavers this week already.
Okay. And when do you propose to increase the number of?
Roughly till next month. Once the construction, most of the backyard is done, which is, this week they should be done with most of the pavers, and then by next week, they're gonna do all the planters, all the plants and stuff.
Do the children go out now?
No, not right now at the moment.
Okay. Because I'm a little concerned with that kind of work going on and,
Yeah, they're not going outside at all right now, in the backyard.
okay.
And since they have small children, you keep them busy with just playing with them inside and keeping them active inside.
Thank you. You may.
Okay.
What do you think? Any questions, any comments?
You know, we've had other of these before, and we put for the initial application, put like a return date on it of 1 year or something like that to see if everything is in line. Thus far, the ones that have been approved in the past have all, we haven't had any really city comments or issues with it. I'd kind of be comfortable with the same procedure for this one as well.
Sure, we'll be happy to add that as a condition that we'll bring it back to you 1 year from today for an update.
Do we have speakers on this?
Not on this item.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:11 PM. I'll entertain a motion.
So I'll move to approve with the addition of a 1 year return to review the case.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Barr.
Commissioner Barr,
Yes.
Commissioner Tinker,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chair St. Martin.
Yes. Item number 3, plot plan PP 2018-0103. Who's the lucky one?
It's me again. This item before you this evening is plot plan 2018-0103 for the proposed construction of an approximately 17,000 square foot manufacturing and warehouse building with office space and outdoor storage on a 1.22 acre parcel located at the west side of Veely, north of 4th Street in the manufacturing zone. The city is in receipt of an application from Dawn Residential to build an approximately 17,000 square foot building with office space and outdoor storage. The proposed project is permitted in the manufacturing zone, subject to approval of a plot plan application by the Planning Commission. The subject site is currently vacant. It is surrounded on the north, south, and west sides by the Lowe's distribution facility and across Veely Street to the east by other industrial uses, including Perricone Juices. The proposed building and site improvements will be compatible with the surrounding area. The project was presented at the city's Development Review Committee on June 28, 2018, where departments reviewed, discussed, and provided conditions for the proposed project. The site as conditioned will be paved, landscaped, and include fencing and walls. The project takes access from Veely, where a new driveway and landscaping is proposed. Landscaping is also proposed around the perimeter of the property and the parking area. The site will have 35 paved delineated parking spaces. All proposed landscaping will be required to meet the city's landscaping ordinance that requires water-efficient landscaping. Separate detailed plans are required as part of the conditions of approval. The proposed building is 16,850 square feet, with 7,500 square feet dedicated for manufacturing and 7,850 square feet for warehousing, with 1,500 square feet dedicated for office space. The building is equipped with a staging area and a loading dock. The outdoor storage area is proposed at the rear of the property, and staff has conditioned the project to provide a block wall screening for that storage area. There is an existing retaining wall, wrought iron, and chain link fencing on the north, south, and west sides of the property, which are part of the Lowe's site. The applicant has met with Lowe's and is proposing to remove the existing 4-foot high wrought iron fence from the Lowe's site and replace it with a 6-foot high wrought iron fence on the same wall. The chain link fencing will be removed. The applicant is also proposing wrought iron fencing and gates along the front of the property visible from Veely Street. The proposed application is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act under Section 15332 infill development and does not require an initial study to be conducted. In turn, a negative declaration would not be warranted. Staff's recommendation is the commission hold a public hearing and approve plot plan 2018-0103 for the proposed construction of an approximately 17,000 square foot manufacturing and warehouse building with office space and outdoor storage on 1.22 acres, subject to the attached conditions of approval. Staff is available if you have any questions, and I believe the applicant is in the audience this evening as well.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
Someone really didn't want to sell us to Lowe's when it first got built there, did they?
Looks that way to us as well.
But what jumps out to me is looking at the aerial, there seems to be a pretty significant setback along Veely by the Lowe's site. Is there, what was the genesis of the history on that? And because this does not appear to hold the same setback requirements.
I'm not aware of what the original reasoning on the Lowe's site is. However, we did review the general plan circulation element and made sure that we were leaving the proper amount of roadway width according to our current general plan. I did talk to them, and we're going to make sure that although they're not meeting the amount of landscaping, we're going to make sure that it kind of blends together as best as possible.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'm going to open the public hearing at 6:16. Will the applicant please come up to the microphone?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners and staff. My name is Dan Haskins. I'm with Land Engineering Consultants, 650 Avenue K, Calamasa, California. And with me is Matt Young. He is with Dawn Residential, and if he needs to speak, he'll announce his address too.
Okay.
We want to thank staff. We've worked with them back and forth. They've helped us with the municipal code issues and the setbacks and things. And with the plan we put forward, I think, is a really good plan for the area. It's architecturally pleasing. It's landscaped well over the minimum allowed or minimum required. And so we want to welcome Dawn Residential to the area and their client. It's a manufacturing use that's going to bring tax dollars to the city. And overall, it's a good, clean project. And we just appreciate the city's input tonight. If you've got any questions, we're agreeable to the conditions of approval and ready to move forward.
Any questions of the applicant?
Do you know what they're going to be manufacturing? Do we know what the use is? Or is that not able to be disclosed?
No, the manufacturing is cutting and repackaging of tube steel.
Okay.
So it's 2-inch to 4-inch perforated steel pipe.
Okay.
It's cut and repackaged, reshipped.
Okay.
And that would be what would be stored outside? The stock?
The delivery, once it comes off the truck, there's an outside storage location dedicated, and then there's also 5,000 square feet of interior storage as well.
It's a continuously moving, the material's dropped and it's left there, maybe left there 24, 40 hours, and then it's brought inside, cut, packaged, ready to ship, and then it's distributed. So it's a continuous moving operation.
Are these custom orders?
The orders are custom. Yeah, the material is manufactured back east.
Right. But you're preparing them for custom use?
Correct.
Commissioner Tinker, any questions?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Any speakers on this item?
Not for this item.
I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:18. Any comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Tinker,
Second?
second by Commissioner Barr.
Commissioner Barr,
Yes.
Commissioner Tinker,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chair St. Martin.
Yes. Do we have any further business with the Planning Commission?
No, I don't.
So I'm going to adjourn the meeting of the Planning Commission at 6:19 p.m. Now we have a meeting of the General Plan Task Force.
A joint meeting of the Planning Commission, General Plan Task Force, and Economic Development Committee.
All of the above. I'm going to open that at 6:19 p.m.
Wanted to welcome everyone and thank everyone for coming. We're doing a general plan update workshop regarding, more specifically our downtown specific plan. We wanted to have both the general plan task force that was appointed by the City Council, our Planning Commission, as well as the Economic Development Committee here to help give input and the public so that we can move forward in the creation of our downtown specific plan and make sure that we're meeting the vision of what the city and the community wants. We took input through the surveys, and I'm going to introduce Simran Malhotra from Ramey and Associates and Jason Pack from Fair and Pierce. They are our consultants on this project, and I'll turn it over to Simran, who's going to kind of go over what we've done so far on the general plan, and I'm sure Jason will take over when it's time to talk about traffic. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Task Force, Economic Development Committee, and the Planning Commission. I'm Simran Malhotra, principal with Ramey and Associates. We are a planning and urban design firm.
Move the microphone up.
We are a planning and urban design firm based in Berkeley with offices in Riverside and Los Angeles. We've been working with city staff and the task force as well as other members of the community over the last year and a half on developing a general plan update and a vision for it. And what we'd like to do today is give you a brief overview of where we are, what we have heard so far as the citywide general plan is concerned, and then spend most of our time focusing on the downtown specific plan, the land uses proposed for that, the zoning districts, as well as information about the street improvements that are being envisioned to create the kind of downtown that the community desires. Rebecca, is there a clicker I could use? So as I mentioned, the agenda for today is to give you a brief overview of the general plan as well as the downtown specific plan. So to start with, what is a general plan? A general plan is essentially a roadmap for the future of the city of Beaumont. And it's a policy document that forms the foundation of all city ordinances and guidelines, including the zoning code, and that will be a part of this project. We started the project about a little over a year ago. We've done some existing conditions analysis, visioning with the community, developed plan alternatives, received feedback from both the community as well as the city council on the alternatives, and now have a preferred land use alternative and are in the process of writing the general plan document. We will be bringing that to you later this year. A part of the project is also to develop a downtown specific plan, which we'll go over in some greater detail. Throughout this process, we've had several surveys with the community as well as community workshops, met with youth focus groups, and also met with the task force at multiple stages to get their input. What we have heard so far from the community, and I won't read through every single comment here, but in general, the community, what people like in the community is the small town feel of the city. And how it feels like a small town, how everyone's friendly, how you feel safe here, and it's a beautiful location with the mountain setting. Some of the concerns that we have heard about are related to homelessness and the desire for more improvements to streetscape environment, additional street lighting, and the lack of events and things to do in the community. So people tend to go to other communities in the region for entertainment, shopping, and there's a fair amount of retail leakage that occurs. And the desire of the community is to bring some of those things back here so that we can foster a more robust economy as well as the ability to entertain ourselves within the community. So what people want is a better downtown, more shopping opportunities, more jobs, and but at the same time, we want this growth to be balanced and reasonable, so that any kind of development is kept in pace with the infrastructure improvements that would be needed and to accompany that development. There's a desire for additional street amenities, public spaces, park space, plazas, etc., for events to take place, and also desire to slow traffic down so that pedestrians feel safe and there's a more pedestrian-friendly environment, especially in downtown. So based on the input we've received, we developed a vision statement, which I'll just read that out to you. It says, Beaumont, where we value our small town feel, our community heritage, and our natural setting. We are committed to encouraging economically sustainable, balanced growth that respects our long history while meeting infrastructure needs and protecting our environment. Beaumont's community pride and rural mountain setting sets our city apart as a vibrant and healthy community with local access to retail, services, jobs, and recreation. So based on that vision statement, I don't know if you can read this very clearly, but the land use map for that is part of the general plan is on the screen here. And there are several land use districts which try to implement, build on what's already here today, as well as look to the future in terms of developing areas that implement this vision. So I won't walk through each of these various land use designations, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. But it's essentially preserving the existing residential neighborhoods, creating a downtown, and then creating various mixed-use neighborhoods along and opportunities for jobs along the various freeway corridors, both the 60 and the I-10. So you preserve the industrial corridor, the commercial zone on the south side of the 10, and then going down the 79, you have urban village designations, which allow for a mix of uses of retail, homes, jobs, in order to create both the commercial environment that the city desires, but also have supportive residential uses that would help service those uses. Now switching gears to a smaller piece of it, which is downtown. The downtown area is defined in the general plan, and in the specific plan is essentially the 6th Street corridor, which goes all the way from California Street to the eastern end of the city at Highland Springs Avenue, and then along Beaumont Avenue, going north and south from the freeway north to 13th Avenue. 13th Street. And this is a fairly large area, so we have divided it into 3 major sub-areas, which I'll go through in greater detail. And the 3 areas are interrelated, but have slightly different intents as well as different characters that I'll describe right now. So the heart of the downtown specific area is the downtown core sub-area, and it essentially goes from 8th Street south to the freeway, and then Palm Avenue on the east and over to the western boundary of the specific plan area. And this is intended to be a walkable, family-friendly, and pedestrian-oriented area with active retail uses along 6th Street and also Beaumont Avenue. This is your heart of the downtown, where you would expect to see the most amount of pedestrian-related activity. You also have the Civic Center here, and so it becomes the community's gathering space. There's opportunities to create a setting here, both with the City Hall and the various proposed uses for this to become the center for the city of Beaumont. The next sub-area is going north along Beaumont Avenue from 8th Street all the way to 13th Street. And the intent of this sub-area is to maintain the existing single-family residential uses, as well as the intermixing of some of the retail and low-intensity office uses that already exist. The goal for this sub-area is to continue to be compatible with the single-family residential neighborhoods to the north, as well as on either side of this sub-area district. The third sub-area is along 6th Street, going to the east, from the east of Palm all the way to Highland Springs Avenue. And this sub-area is intended to provide for a larger format setting for commercial as well as residential development in a mixed-use setting. So you could have either commercial uses as standalone or residential uses as standalone, or you could have them in a mixed-use setting. The properties in this area are larger. The typical parcel size are larger than in the other sub-areas. So as a result, you would begin to see development that's of a different scale. You would have slightly higher densities as well as higher heights to the development that might occur here. So based on those overall sub-area differentiations, we've developed a variety of zoning districts that would be tailored for individual properties. And there's a series of 4 mixed-use districts as well as 3 residential districts. And then there's a commercial district and, of course, there's public facilities. So this is the overall zoning district map, and I'll briefly walk you through each one of the various districts, starting with the downtown mixed-use district. And the intent here is, as I said earlier, to create a lively and thriving downtown area by accommodating mixed uses with the requirement that along 6th Street and Beaumont Avenue on the ground floor you have active retail uses that are required. So that when you have pedestrians walking through, they are not they're always engaged with both the land uses that are adjacent to the street, and the streets themselves are much more pedestrian friendly with streetscape amenities, street trees, pedestrian scale street lighting, and so on. Part of this zoning district is to limit incompatible uses in the future. So existing uses that are incompatible, and those include auto-related uses, auto repair, etc. Those would become non-conforming, legal non-conforming, but new uses would not be allowed to locate within this zone. As I said earlier, the uses allowed include vertical and horizontal mixed-use development, retail, offices, housing. The densities permitted here are 15 units to the acre with a FAR of 0.35, and you could build up to 3 stories within this zone. These are some examples of what an active pedestrian environment might look like. So wide sidewalks with outdoor dining opportunities, street lighting, street trees, street furniture, and active pedestrian uses. The next district is the Beaumont mixed-use district, and the intent here is to facilitate the corridor's transition to becoming more of a mixed-use district with future non-residential development that's compatible with the neighboring single-family uses. The allowed uses here include professional offices, service, limited retail, along with residential. And the densities here would be less than what's allowed in the downtown, 10 units to the acre, and a lower height, 2 stories, so that it's more in keeping with the surrounding single-family neighborhoods. 6th Street mixed use is intended to provide for commercial and multi-family housing. Standalone commercial uses are permitted. This zone essentially covers the area between 6th Street and the freeway. So as I said earlier, the larger parcel sizes and commercial uses are appropriate here, although there's opportunity for residential uses as well. Along Pennsylvania, going south of the freeway, is the future site for the Metrolink transit station. So there's also connectivity built in for to access the transit station in the future. The kind of uses permitted for here are again commercial and multi-family housing with higher densities, 22 units to the acre, and up to 4 stories in height. This area is also part of the housing element. The housing element designates the properties within this as a future site for affordable housing. So it's important to maintain the higher densities in this area to be consistent with the housing element recommendations. On the north side of 6th Street, we have a 6th Street mixed-use residential zone, which requires a residential component. So this area would be required to have residential uses along with commercial uses, and would help transition up further north to the residential neighborhoods within the city. Examples here include up to 4 stories, residential standalone uses, or in a mixed-use format. The mixed-use buildings could either be vertical mixed-use or horizontal mixed-use. So you could have commercial on the facing 6th Street, but with residential uses in the back. The local commercial zone is located over on Highland Springs Road and along 6th Street next to the hospital over on the east side of Highland Springs. So medical office uses are permitted, but this area will continue to be to provide neighborhood serving retail and commercial uses that are supportive of the residences around. Again, the height here could be up to 60 feet or 4 stories, and a FAR of 0.7, which would be typical of a local commercial zone. The 3 residential zones are essentially the downtown single-family zone, which would have these are existing neighborhoods. You can see those in yellow. It's maintaining the single-family detached housing types already here, with up to 2 stories in height. The multi-family zone, which is located to the north of 6th Street along 8th Street, would have provide supportive housing for the downtown itself and for the commercial uses along 6th Street. The kind of product that's envisioned here includes townhomes, walk-ups, garden apartments, and condominiums. Up to 3 stories are envisioned here with a density of 22 units to the acre. The downtown mixed residential is a zone which essentially it corresponds to existing areas which have a mix of single-family and multi-family uses already in place. And the goal here is to maintain those uses, but not allow for very high density uses to limit incompatibility with the existing single family uses within. So in summary, this is the overall zoning map. We also have, and you would have had in your packets, the allowed use list, which is a draft list for the allowed uses by each zoning district. So the uses are designated either as permitted, conditionally permitted, or not permitted. And we're happy to answer any questions you might have about any particular use. As I mentioned, we have tailored this list to meet the intent of the various zones. The auto-related uses are not permitted in the downtown zone or along Beaumont Avenue, but are may continue to be permitted or conditionally permitted on the eastern end of 6th Street, where conditionally permitted when they meet certain conditions. And with that, I will turn this over to Jason to talk a little bit about the street improvements that go with the overall vision for downtown that's being established here.
Thank you, Simran. Again, my name is Jason Pack. I'm a principal with the firm Fair and Peers. We have 13 or 14 offices across the United States. I happen to oversee our Orange County as well as our Riverside offices. And just a little background about myself, besides being a traffic engineer here in the state of California, I had the privilege of growing up in two tiny small towns that had thriving downtowns north of the Sacramento area up in the mountains, a little town called Grass Valley in Nevada City. Super thriving, super successful downtowns. Upon graduation, it seems like a lot of the work I've done over the last 20 years from Northern California to Southern California all centers around either trying to fix what we did as traffic engineers, where we started widening roads and making it very, very easy for vehicles to speed through our downtowns, which then made people not be able to see our signs of our businesses. And the businesses started vacating and people stopped going to downtowns and it became thoroughfares. So unfortunately, I think my profession has had a large hand in that. And a lot of the projects we're currently undertaking is trying to rectify some of the damage we caused when we focused solely on making sure the roads were as wide as possible for vehicles. So with that, what I'm going to present are some of the street sections that we have developed in support of this downtown plan. I want to ensure that everybody's aware that when we talk about transportation, it's all about choices. So if we want a thriving pedestrian environment and a good place to bike, and I always put my wife and kids in that perspective. So if I want my wife and kids walking around on the streets, accessing our businesses, don't want vehicles driving 55 miles per hour and have them on a 3 or 4 foot sidewalk directly adjacent to traffic. So it's all about choices when we talk about transportation. What we've tried to do is take the land use plan and the zoning that Simran just covered and make sure that we're proposing roadways that match the character that I think we're trying to achieve in the downtown. And really, we're hoping to solicit some input from the committee members, from the Planning Commission, to see if we hopefully captured that, and if we didn't, what we need to tweak. So from that perspective, we'll start on 6th Street, and the way we've laid these graphics out is we're starting at the west end of 6th Street. It's basically right adjacent to the 60 interchange, or where 6th Street interfaces with the freeway, and then we're continuing it to the east, and then when I get to Beaumont Avenue, we'll cover that. So the first section that we're looking at here is, I always mispronounce Ville or Ville. Ville. I swear, I say it wrong every time, to California. So in this particular case, what we're seeing is we've got the different type of land use zoning that Simran talked about. We are seeing a little bit of a transition towards the freeway. So what we've tried to do in this particular cross-section is really widen out that sidewalk space so that we provide additional space for pedestrians to access the businesses and things of that nature. We have added, one of the things we did here in the community survey, besides the desire to have a downtown, was concern over speeds as well as desire for parking. So when we start looking at that public realm and the street serving it, we have facilitated parallel parking in this corridor. We've been able to provide bicycles facilities, in this case a bicycle lane at 5 feet. When we start looking at bicycle lanes and we have a little bit of space left over, we'll start looking at buffering the bicycle. So in this particular case, we're buffering them from what we call the dooring zone. So if you think about a parallel car parked and the driver swinging their door open to get out and a bicyclist hitting the door, it's one of the major accident frequencies we see with bicyclists along corridors. So in this particular case, we've buffered what I call the dooring zone. And then really what we've done is we've tightened up the drive lanes as well as made one lane each direction to help really slow down vehicles, create a better pedestrian environment, reduce the pedestrian exposure when pedestrians do want to cross the street to get to different businesses. And in this particular case, we did leave a center turn lane to help facilitate some of those turns into some of the driveway cuts and curb cuts that we have along this corridor. So I think what I'd like to do is I'll try and go through all of these to give a broad overview, and then I think we can take questions for all of them. So moving on as we proceed east through the corridor, 6th Street, we've got California to Beaumont Avenue. So in this particular case, California I see as kind of a critical component of your downtown. It almost marks kind of that end of the transition of the freeway to California, and then California to Beaumont is really, we're starting to get into the core, the heart of the downtown. So our revised or our cross section here, again, we've got one travel lane each direction. 11 feet is decently narrow. That's the new Caltrans standard. We used to do all roads at 12 feet. We've since reduced that at Caltrans to 11 feet. So we're trying to tighten that up to reduce the speeds of the autos in the corridor. In this particular case, we're actually buffering the bicyclist from the through lane. Just a different treatment in this particular area that, given the types of businesses that we were seeing, we thought it was more appropriate to buffer it from the through lane in this area, and then parking. In this particular case, our roadway wasn't necessarily as wide as the previous one, so we fit in a 5-foot sidewalk and a planting strip. 6-foot sidewalk and a planting strip, but really trying to maximize the right or the public space, if you will, within the available right of way, and get it to the users that we think need it in this area. 6th Street from Beaumont to Palm, this is where we have, I'll call it, our most radical change in our minds as far as what the street looks like, and unfortunately this cross section does not do it any justice, so I'm going to flip directly to a picture. So this is Lancaster Lancaster Boulevard in the city of Lancaster. And they had a very similar situation which you have on 6th Street. They had a big road going through their downtown, high speeds. And what they've done is they've provided angled parking in the center median, and then really reduced up their side streets. And this is a picture of what it looks like now. It's been extremely successful in the city of Lancaster at slowing speeds down, providing a lot more parking for the businesses, and really creating a thriving downtown with a public space that's pretty unique and pretty interesting. So what we've done, this is a little different than Lancaster. Lancaster also was able to squeeze in, they have a little bit more right of way, so they were able to squeeze in parallel parking on both sides in addition to the angled parking in the center. Here on 6th Street, we just don't have that much right of way, so we're really focused on that angled parking in the center, primarily to slow vehicles down and get a little bit more parking. In a cross-section view, this is what it looks like, but again, in reality, when it gets constructed, this is what it would look like as far as providing that downtown experience.
And Jason,
yeah.
Sorry for interrupting, but one thing to add here is that the parking area in the middle can be closed off for you could remove the parking and use that for holding farmers markets and other public events during the course of the year. So it becomes a public space, which is dual use.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. Lancaster does that frequently here. In this particular case, because we have that center parking, speeds will be reduced through this area. It'll be slower to drive through here, a lot slower than it currently is. So one of the things that we're doing is we're actually mixing the bicycles with the through lanes. We call those sharrows that we see on the ground, but essentially providing that situation. And when we get speeds low enough, that works very, very well. When we have higher speeds, that's really where we want to start looking at the separation between the bicyclists and the through zones. The other nice part about this roadway configuration is it does give us a little bit more width on the sidewalk. So again, when you start thinking about public spaces and community events and things of that nature, kind of in your heart of your downtown, that center parking area plus the wide sidewalks really provides you a lot of flexibility in this area to do some pretty neat events.
Central Business District, that'd be 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on there.
Yeah, and in Lancaster, I think it's posted 25, but when I drive it, I find it to be fairly uncomfortable to drive more than 20, and I tend to find myself driving about 15 miles per hour. Through this core, and again, you're making it a destination as a place to drive through, which is really the goal of what Lancaster did in this area, and is one of the things that we think would be a good idea and really be beneficial to a downtown here, and really meet the goals of what we heard in the community survey as far as creating a downtown.
This image is nicer than what I was expecting. I know there's something similar in Pismo, but it's just all paved in the middle.
Yeah.
This is actually a really nice concept.
Yeah, this is super successful, and I would encourage you, if you haven't been to Lancaster, it's worth checking out. It's done very, very well, very well. So kind of moving on, when you get further east, so now we're kind of out of that core area and we're getting into some of the higher density stuff that Simran had talked to, some of the more freeway-oriented businesses, if you will, as you go down 6th Street. We are seeing the need to widen it back out to 4 lanes to provide a little bit more of a vehicle focus in that area. This is in part due to Pennsylvania Avenue in the future having freeway ramps connecting to the freeway. We're just seeing kind of that Pennsylvania maneuver being higher demand on the traffic side. And again, because we've got the more freeway-oriented commercial and the little bit higher density, we're just seeing a little bit more land use demand where we're seeing the need for the 4 travel lanes on this road instead of 1 lane each direction or 2 total. So we've got the 4 lanes. We have narrowed up those lanes to try and reduce the speeds as much as possible. That's why you're seeing the 10-foot travel lanes here. And then we do have bicycle lanes that are buffered with a pretty decent pedestrian space at 7 feet on the sidewalk, plus the landscaping and furnishings.
Well, from Pennsylvania going east, we have a lot of the business community there
Yes.
that we need to address. I mean, they're established businesses. And a lot of it is, trailer sales, RV sales, that type of thing from Pennsylvania east.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what this cross-section is. So this is essentially Pennsylvania to Highland Springs, where we start the existing land uses that you noted. And you can see the facility is getting a little bit bigger. So now we've introduced a center median. So in our mind, if you're traveling west of the corridor, you're gonna have a center median, some narrow travel lanes. So you'll start slowing down as you're exiting city Banning. Then we'll get rid of the center median and really trying to step it down and set that expectation that you're entering a different place, a downtown, if you will, and that you should be expecting different types of treatments and driving slower as you accommodate that. In this particular case, since we did have a lot of the businesses, we've also introduced parking.
If we're coming westbound from Highland Springs on 6th Street, are we going to be able to, where we have the medians, or we have the separation where folks can actually move to the businesses going westbound? Because, if we block them off, then we're going to lose the businesses.
Yeah, and we'll lay that out in plan view. I think right now we're looking big picture. Is this kind of in line with your expectations? But yeah, we're definitely willing to take some of that input and see how it could be affected if we change this to, say, a 2-way left turn lane for access for autos. The problem then that we get are a lot of vehicles turning into driveways at more frequent locations, and then we start jeopardizing the pedestrian experience. So again, it's all about those trade-offs and making sure that.
Well, there is trade-offs because we got to make sure the businesses are taken care of, and I understand the pedestrians, but we want to make sure the businesses that are established there, that we don't choke them off.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I would note that, to that point, there already is a median in most of that corridor that exists today.
No, I know that, but there's also the ability to.
Right. But,
I just don't want to lose that.
Even if, it's maintained there at the median with the 12-foot, we could still maintain the access points and it wouldn't be any changes.
Okay, I'm just.
Yeah.
Correct, and very good points. So as we get through the Beaumont corridor, so when we looked at Beaumont, we started at the south and moved north, just to give you your proximity. So essentially start at the freeway, and as you head north through the city, again, we're coming right out of a freeway area and approaching our downtown pretty quickly. So what we've tried to do is we're still providing the 2 travel lanes each direction, although I have narrowed those up, again, trying to set that expectation you should be slowing down. We did have the ability to introduce a buffered bicycle lane here for the bicycles coming through this corridor, and then we're able to facilitate some pretty decent sidewalks and space adjacent to future businesses and existing businesses within the public right-of-way. But again, it's kind of setting that stage and transitioning from that freeway experience coming into your downtown. From 6th to 8th Street, so again, this says we're just crossing over 6th Street, heading north. We're still seeing kind of that northwest demand being fairly high, so we did keep 4 travel lanes. Again, we've reduced it. We've kept that buffered bicycle lane through this corridor. And then as we continue north, basically when you get north of 8th Street, we are seeing a lot of the traffic kind of decreasing, if you will, or people are getting to their destinations by the time they get to 8th Street. So we're seeing the ability to narrow up Beaumont Avenue here to 1 lane each direction. And what that does is it really gives us a lot of space to kind of change that side treatment for people accessing the new businesses, hopefully that come in, and some of the new land uses that Simran had talked about, really providing that enhanced pedestrian experience, and then also being able to fit in parking as well as what I call double buffered bike lane, so I had enough space to buffer the dooring zone as well as buffer the bicyclists from the travel way. So with that, I think we're open to questions, and I know we went through that pretty quickly, so I'm sure there's questions, or I'm hoping there's questions, and we're here to take feedback.
And we can go back to any of the slides.
Yeah, yes, I do, sir. You know, you're 8th to 13th, which doesn't mean anything. 12th Street's a stop sign. 12th Street is part of the commercial. You know, at one time in the city's redevelopment program, up through 12th and almost to, which is now Oak Valley Parkway, 1 block each side was considered commercial. Well, that's all residential. So you've got basically 4 lanes from, I'll say, 8th Street north. So how are we going to put a bike lane, and how are we going to reduce the speed when that's a major thoroughfare? And you have a stop sign at 12th and a stop sign at 14th. Excuse me, Park Valley Parkway. But I don't understand where 13th Street comes into play here, because that's all residential. There's a minor amount of commercial in there, but it's 90% residential. So
Yeah.
how are we playing this? I
Yeah,
understand.
and I think 13th is more of a naming convention, since that's kind of the boundary of the specific plan area. So the downtown specific plan boundary is there. So we're just using it more as name convention right now. But to your point, the 4 lanes to 2 lanes. One thing that we don't have here, but that is going to be in the analysis and the results and go into the plan, we are seeing the need for all those stop signs to convert over to traffic signals by and large. And to
You don't live in this town, do you?
So I do live in Riverside. I'm close by, but I do not live in Beaumont.
Well, my concern is you're talking about 13th Street, which has no proprietary boundary at all. 12th Street to 14th, which is, you know, Oak Valley Parkway. I don't know where 13th came into play, but you have all the different stops that have been added and subtracted. But if you're going to add turn signals at 13th, it's not going to work, because you have a stop sign at 12th, which is a major thoroughfare.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you something you need to be thinking about here is when the school starts, the predominant people from Three Ring School and all that, 12th Street is the major thoroughfare. You can't get onto 12th Street between 7 and 7:45 in the mornings. So that is a predominant thoroughfare there. 13th is not.
If I can, maybe I can address. 13th is what our existing boundary for our our Beaumont Avenue overlay. So that's why it kind of converted over to this downtown. I think what we're trying to look at is the entire areas and where we have both signals and stop signs, and see what the most efficient way is. It may not be that, you know, 12th Street may become signalized, some other stop signs maybe remove altogether, or signalized, depending on how we move the traffic. 13th in this case is just using what was existing zoning, because north of 13th is just single-family residential in our current zoning and general plan. So that's why the 13th stopped here, because that's where what we planned over the last general plan, and kind of continued that boundary within this general plan.
Okay,
in the
I just
downtown
wanted to make
specific
sure
plan.
that, because, you know,
It wasn't think of 13th as a major road. When we look at this, probably with Jason, we'll probably look also 13th to Oak Valley Parkway, because that is a big piece. We're working on the entire general plan, so that'll be included as well.
no, I understand that, but that's the purpose of this meeting, is for us to discuss these things. And I live there, so 13th.
Commissioner Tinker, I don't think you and I are going to be around here when this happens. So
You know what, you're
I
right.
would not be concerned.
Okay, I'm sorry, you're right. We won't be.
Yeah.
I acquiesce to the chairman.
We understand that the 12th is the major thoroughfare. The reason the boundary here and there is just because that's where the specific plan ends. That's the
Well,
only
that was
reason it's
back
up
when
there.
they did the redevelopment program, and 13th ended there. But, yes, sir, I acquiesce to you. We won't be, so.
But our grandchildren will be here. So why not deal with it?
Well, we're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to alleviate the concerns that Commissioner Tinker has
I
right now.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And within the rest of the general plan, there'll be new roadway cross-sections proposed there as well. So it's outside what the scope of the downtown specific plan is, but there would still be a different proposed roadway section for that segment, just part of the overall.
Well, I understand that, but if we're gonna deal with downtown, let's deal with downtown. Let's stop talk about Beaumont and 13th. That's my concern. I don't have a problem with downtown. There's a lot of things that need to be done. We need to discuss, parking in front of City Hall. We need to discuss all of that. But if we're talking about downtown, let's not talk about 13th and Beaumont Avenue. In my opinion.
So parking, that's one of the kind of points I brought up. There's, if we do look to densify those two, or the 6th Street corridor, has there been any evaluation given to where, if we need a municipal parking garage, where would that have to fit in and access to?
Yes.
From a land user.
Yeah, so in downtown, I can probably flip back. In downtown, we have the surface parking lots just to the east of City Hall. Those are logical sites for potentially a future location for a structure if the need so arises. But that's something that's not definite yet. It's something which we will be discussing further with city staff and.
Parking needs and parking structure is definitely something we will look at as part of this downtown specific plan. Part of what we needed here is to figure out how much street parking we're adding, so we can look at how much, possibly off-street parking we can reduce in our code for the downtown, so that they don't have to put as much on-site parking. And part of that could be discussed in terms of like an in lieu program where people put funds in instead of putting additional parking lots. They put in funds for us to build more of a municipal parking structure, or even just additional lots for parking to accommodate the downtown as well.
I think Redlands has a program like that.
That is correct.
Yeah, and you can also consider a parking district approach and shared parking ratios. The downtown specific plan will have numerical requirements as to how residential uses can potentially share parking with so off-cycle uses. So you can have a bank use, for example, during the weekday, which is used for bank parking, but on weekends it can be used as parking for the various downtown retail uses. So those programs will be discussed in the specific plan, and something which will come back.
It's always such a fine balance because you want to promote walkability, transit, and
Right.
biking, but at the same time, you have to have enough parking to make everything sustainable in and of itself.
That's right.
And I agree with Commissioner Smith. One of the things we need to talk about, and this has been going on for a long time, is we have a fabulous city hall that needs to be the center of our downtown because it's a fabulous building. Well, like Commissioner Smith says, we can develop all this, but where are we going to park them? If we can't park the people, we can't get the development, we can't get the merchants to be happy. So I don't think we need to, in my opinion, let's not talk about, well, we develop a parking district. But I want you to come back and tell me that we need to build a parking structure over here and we need to park this number of cars, or we're going to park them in the middle of 6th Street. But I don't think we can go further with, and excuse me, Nathan, I don't mean to be stepping on your stuff here, but if we're going to develop downtown, we know we got to park them. Well, let's not park them after we developed it.
course.
Let's come in with a development that says, okay, if we're gonna design 6th Street, for example, and we're gonna do a parking thing, and then once a month, we're gonna take those parking spots and make it a farmer's market or all that. That's great, but that's what I wanna see. I don't wanna see that, well, down the road, golly gee whiz, we might need to do this and develop a parking district. I want you to tell me, what do we need to do to make it work? What do we need to do that, we have a fabulous building right here. We need to emphasize this building. So if that means, if you come back and tell me, we need to put 50 parking spots in the middle of 6th Street, okay, I'm okay with that. But I don't want to hear supposition and maybe we shoulda, coulda, woulda. And that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Of course. You're absolutely right. The approaches to parking need to be decided decisively now as opposed to later on. But in addition to that, there is the issue of making sure that building parking, which is an expensive capital investment, keeps in pace with the development. So there's a phasing issue that needs to be
I understand that.
kept in mind.
And keep in mind, I don't normally agree with Commissioner Smith, but right now I am tonight. So.
What are we doing to address the signage ordinance to accommodate this?
The downtown specific plan will have its own sign regulations.
Because if you're going to invite businesses in, they want signage that people is going to see. So we need to be addressing that.
Yeah. And if you notice right now, Mr. Chairman, that you go into any other city and they tell you where City Hall is, find me a sign in this town that tells us where our City Hall is. We don't have one.
So
those are things that these are baby steps, I understand that. But if we're gonna start promoting the city and then in this development, we have some little steps that need to be taking place. I'm done.
A key component is developing a citywide signage and branding program, which has a wayfinding component to it, which does exactly that. When you come off the freeway, you have some sense of, okay, this way to City Hall, this way to our downtown.
Correct.
You celebrate that both with signage in terms of directing people there, but when you get there, it's a different environment, both in terms of streetscape amenities, whether it's banners that highlight that street trees. In the Lancaster example, there are other photographs which we don't have up here, which show how they treat that central parking space. They have lights, overhead lights, that at night provide a very different and festival-like atmosphere, and makes it a more unique experience that is attractive.
So I have a couple thoughts, couple concerns, and maybe a half-baked idea. The 6th Street, I do like the street sections that are proposed. I do like slowing the traffic down, promoting that. If we're wanting to make downtown Beaumont a destination, it's nice to have the immediate freeway access off of 6th Street. But the issue I see with that is that can serve as kind of a release valve if there's ever backup on the freeway, that you have a lot of people that come through that way. If we're going to be reducing the street sections on 6th Street, what can we do to help protect so that we don't have too many people riding through the residential neighborhoods up to 8th Street? There are traffic management policies that we can incorporate as part of that to discourage that behavior.
Yeah, and we can definitely include those policies. And I think the other component is we are looking at this right now. We're focused on the downtown, but as part of the general plan, we've got new general plan roadways that are planned, particularly south of the freeway.
Right.
Potrero Canyon and Potrero and a variety of other facilities. So I think there's going to be other opportunities for people to use. The other nice thing that I love when I first started coming to this town and working here as a transportation engineer, traffic engineer, and transportation planner, you do have a pretty high network, if you will, as far as your grid system and surrounding your downtown. It's rare, or I shouldn't say it's rare, but your bones, if you will, are better than most cities. So you have a tremendous opportunity as far as the redundancy in your network, given the completeness of your grid system north of your downtown. And I think some of those new major connections like Potrero south of the freeway are going to help provide some of that accessibility that I think 6th Street is taking the brunt of right now.
Okay. Okay. On Beaumont Avenue, again, I like the street sections on there. I like the idea of slowing it down with the bike lanes. You know, I had a different idea in my head about what may happen on that, and so maybe this is where my half-baked idea comes in. But you know, we had talked about really wanted to make Stewart Park kind of a focus, maybe a community, you know, center for community activity or something, those types of things. With that in mind, does it make sense to potentially expand the downtown Beaumont Avenue core out to Orange Street so that it would address some of the frontage on Stewart Park? Or is that, I think this is my half-baked idea.
No, I don't think it's half-baked at all.
You know, but maybe try to look at ways to enhance that. You know, there's a lot of older residential. I could see, you know, some options there for, you know, maybe some commercial or recreation, or, you know, mix it in with some of the housing. I don't know.
Well, think about this. You know, you got a good idea, because what does Stewart Park do? Cherry Festival. Every time there's a chamber activity, it's all in Stewart Park. So if you take what you're talking about and kind of direct stuff to that park as part of the long-range plan, it would enhance the city, enhance the park. I think it's a great idea.
You know, it does border our public facilities, so it's something definitely that we can work on. The preferred alternative land use was already kind of through council and moved forward with those residential uses, so I don't, you know, foresee us at this time kind of changing the land use. We also already notified everyone of changed areas, which that wouldn't have been part of the changed area. But I think there's still opportunity to use our civic center as a gateway to the Stewart Park process. I just don't know. It's pretty established neighborhoods around it, so I don't know how bringing in some commercial would
be challenging.
Work. Yes.
Very, very long range.
But you know what? I think she's got the right idea. If you build off the Civic Center and use the Civic Center as the core to this, and then use Orange Street going up, Nathan, it would be right what you're talking about. And you redirect, but use that Stewart Park as part of a accent, so to speak, to the Civic Center. It would be a great idea. I mean, it's already being used. We might as well emphasize the Stewart Park to the Civic Center. I think it's a great idea.
And then my last one is I was pleased to hear about the reservation of land on the south side of the freeway to Pennsylvania for future transit station. You know, is there a way that we can incorporate a goal as part of this, maybe to puncture another connection through that, you know, so if someone is coming off and walking or biking, that it's not necessarily on Pennsylvania with the freeway interchange, that there's another way for them to get across the freeway, under the freeway, over the freeway, you know, some way it wouldn't be on that major interchange.
Well, I think we're working on with that interchange, making sure we have the proper pedestrian access. We're working on grade separations and things like that. So I think we're trying to make, our goal is to make that interchange a pedestrian, both vehicle but also pedestrian friendly intersection, so that we can bring people from that transit station up into the downtown. People who might live in this mixed use area have access to that transit station. So it's definitely part of our goal that we've worked on with Ramey to hopefully get a future transit stop that would have access to this area.
I'd like to ride my bike across Oak Valley sometime, but you know, that's a little scary right now at the moment. So.
Okay, any other questions from the commission?
No, those are
the only comment I have, and I agree, you and I won't be around to see it.
I have a script I've got to follow.
I really would like to see in your development, in your plan, we have a wonderful building here, and the Civic Center, I think, needs to be emphasized as the core to this thing. Nathan had the right idea. We got Stewart Park, but somehow or another, we've got to go back and remember that this is the core of Beaumont. Now, I'm not saying that, let's go back to 1919, But if we use this building as the core to this community, or the core to the development, then I think we can't do anything but grow. I don't want us to just do anything that slights this facility, because I think we need to emphasize this facility. You know, and there's so much around it that we could develop too. And that's the only comment I have. And like I said, you and I won't be here, so it'll be okay. We're getting old. So
Okay, any input from the general plan task force? Chairman Beneke?
He's playing too much golf to pay attention.
I'm not the chairman, but I was part of the committee that sat through the meetings and heard the various reports and looked at all the alternatives. And I think we came up with an excellent plan, realizing that general plans in general are basically 8 to 10 years. They're redone by state law. I think you have to redo them every 8 to 10 years. And when I moved here a little 11.5 years ago, there was a general plan that was apparently completed. And if you go back and look at that general plan, nothing's really changed very much, other than there's a lot more residential, a lot more people, a lot more residential, a lot more traffic congestion. You know, we got 4 lanes coming into a 2-lane bridge, you know, that needs to be addressed. So a lot of foresight was given to promoting residential. Not much was given to downtown, although I did sit on a downtown specific plan about 6 years ago. And there's a plan sitting on the shelf. It costs the city about 50 grand. Vice Chairman St. Martin remembers that. And
I didn't want to bring it up.
Yeah, but basically that plan was to encourage existing businesses to improve their facades, a paint scheme, sign schemes, some landscape along the corridor. This plan is very more specific in nature, which is good. And again, 10 years down the road, we may not be here, as you said, but everything is really dependent on being able to finance and get the kind of businesses you want in your community, in your downtown. There is a little problem in this area with the way the small lot sizes exist. To really redevelop an area, and I've been involved in several redevelopments in communities, you need to almost have a master plan developer who can come in and take hold of the area you want to redevelop. And of course, the master plan developer will bring in the dollars to buy out current businesses, work with current businesses, and then put that vision you all have for the community into being and make it happen. That's really the only way it's going to work. I mean, it's nice to set up all the ground rules, and I think you need that because businesses that want to come in here need to know what the ground rules are. They need to know what is expected of them. And I just think we ought to continue. I think this community is obviously it's growing tremendously. People, we are losing a lot of retail because we don't have it here right now, but we will eventually get it. Whether it's in the downtown or if it's somewhere else on some other corridors around the city, it will happen eventually. But I would personally like to, and again, this is a policy issue. It's a council issue. You have to set priorities. There's only so much money to go around. So, you know, I applaud all the people that worked on this, on the redevelopment, economic development committee. And also on the general plan task force. I think the last time this was presented, there was not as much public input into the process. This has been totally, at least as I'm concerned, more public input has been put into this document than I've ever seen put into a document, to be honest with you. So it does have a lot of community input. And hopefully, maybe we'll hear more community input because that's what it's all about. It is a community general plan. It's for the community. So, anyway, I want to thank the consultants for a great job, And of course, our job's not over with yet, but, appreciate the Planning Commission inviting us here to participate in this general overview.
Thanks, Mr. Beneke.
I'd like to add that old downtown specific plan has been dusted off, and we are taking cues from it as part of this.
okay.
So it has not been ignored. It has been provided to the consultants as part of this, and we're taking the input that was done back then and making sure we're incorporating the parts that fit within the new land use and things like that. So we have it still.
Mr.
I
Millman?
promise.
Good evening. I'm Steve Melman, a member of the task force, and I first want to thank the consultants. It amazes me from our original discussions how far we've come in terms of putting something like this together. 2 quick points I want to make. Number one, somebody mentioned tremendous growth. We are going to continue to have tremendous growth. We can approach it in one of 2 ways. Slapdash, unplanned, unsupported, which, to be quite frank, is part of the problem we've had in this city since we started our boom. Our infrastructure has not been able to keep up with our residential growth. It's been pretty much strictly residential growth, and we were in a pretty bad position. I think we're coming out of it. I think a plan like this will move us perfectly in the right direction to be able to build it the right way. The other question I have is, and I've heard it brought up by some folks, including our mayor, this should be, for many people, a destination stop on the 10.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need folks going 100 miles an hour down the freeway and forgetting about us. I know Nancy Carroll has talked about beautifying the on and off ramps and the overheads and everything else, which I think is a brilliant idea, and I hope we will work with Banning and Calamasa to maybe get that done. But the other thing, it just keeps popping into my mind, and it's ever since I started on this thing, and it's a personal opinion, there's a portion of this downtown, particularly over there maybe between Veal and California and that neck of the woods, and you know about Old Town Temecula, what about Old Town Beaumont?
Yeah.
I think might be a perfect place for it.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more from the task force?
Maybe I'm out of turn. I'm from the Economic Development Committee. My name is Kimberly Stars. I wanted to commend staff and our consultants. This is incredible. I am so proud that this is something that's coming forward in our city. As being a participant in the survey that's going out to business members and conducting surveys with business members as part of the Economic Development Committee, I think this will alleviate a lot of heartache and a lot of heartburn that some of our businesses are experiencing. Having something that attracts consumers and brings residents back home. Being a commuter myself, I'm excited at the prospect of spending more of my tax dollars in Beaumont. So I just want to say thank you for this hard work. It is incredible, and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you. What I think we need to be doing is attracting even some of our residents who live on the other side of the 10 freeway that probably don't even know that downtown Beaumont exists because they travel east or west. They travel west. But anyways, I couldn't agree more. I just wish that I would be around to see it.
I wish you'd quit dragging me into the same grave.
I said I.
I know.
I know this is a team, but it was I.
Yeah.
Okay. You the only representative from Economic Development? Kyle, did you want to say something?
Don't get Kyle started with it.
I said the 3-minute.
Kyle, you have a 1-minute limit, so.
You won't even get up here in 1 minute.
All right, timer. I will go in 1 minute.
Start yellow quick.
So for everyone who doesn't know me, I'm Kyle Wersinski, the Economic Development Manager here at the city. For many hats, one sitting on the Economic Development Committee. Thanks for having me. Thanks for asking me to come talk. This has been a work product that's over a year in the making. This is kind of something that, like Rebecca said, we've worked on taking components from the last specific plan, putting it in this one, and then kind of melding it with the general plan update. So I'm personally excited about seeing something like this get approved, having the environmental done on it, and then trying to work with some of the existing businesses or attract some other businesses or some private investors on figuring out what can actually be penciled out. It may not happen overnight. It may take 10, 15 years for something to happen, but if we don't have this plan in place, which is the planning document, which sets the framework, you're not going to have any sizable investment throughout the area, and your current businesses are going to continue to be outspoken about how unsafe it is for their customers to park or back out of the angled parking. They'll continue to complain that 6th Street is a major thoroughfare and that no one driving on 6 is actually interested in stopping at their business. And it won't create that vibrant downtown area that we're all looking for, and that was one of the most predominant features of the survey response, was this vibrant downtown. And I think all of this plan accomplishes all of those different things. And then to your point, Commissioner Tinker, about the core City Hall, we're nearing our completion of what the revamped site plan will look for City Hall, with the plaza that will be located behind City Hall, and then hopefully growing City Hall into the back building, and then repurposing this historical building into more of a meeting space or something that the community can engage and interact with. So all those things are definitely important, and I encourage the committee, the General Plan Task Force Committee, the Economic Development Committee, and the Planning Commission and City Council to continue working on something that's so important.
Don't forget the community theater.
Well, hopefully that'll be part of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Staff, any other?
You want to open it up to the public comments and questions as well now?
Okay, I'm following the route.
Oh, I apologize.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing session at 7:28.
This portion doesn't require a public hearing, but it's just public comment, just to clarify. I do have one request from the public, Ron Roy, to speak, and anyone else afterwards can speak also.
You go first. You want to go first again?
I guess I'm in that school of, I like what I hear, show me some more, so that's good, and I like the renderings. Commissioner Smith, you brought up some really key points, and I think Tinker put down the hatchet and agreed on the parking. And so I do think the parking is a huge issue with parking structures, parking lots, and the type of parking spaces. I would like to point out that in San Diego, they have a street design manual, and I really think you should take a look at it. City of Beaumont should have one ASAP, start developing one. And I do think we need an overlay for streets in this key area. So a couple of quick points. That residential, I'm having trouble, if you put any residential south of 6th Street, you're going to have an air pollution problem with I-10, and you got sensitive receptors, people who are living 24 hours or families there all day. So I would be discouraged, hoping you discourage that. But if it's a business like, an auto body shop or lawnmower repair or something like that, where they're 8 to 5, that's south of 6th Street, that's pretty good because you're just there as a customer, I'll be there for half an hour, something like that. Okay, so what I'm kind of excited about, and I'm just kind of a warm-blooded mammal, throw my ball up in the air and hope you catch it, the person with the best idea wins. I like the idea of the Stewart Park. So I wanted to think about the 8th Street, and I do have some pictures here. You can take a look, and Magnolia Avenue, and I think you're on the right track. In the city of, if you could just let them check it out. I got some more, too much information. But in the city of Montrose, they have a shopping district, and you've probably seen it before. I might as well just start passing it out because I don't have that much time. But anyways, they have a shopping district, and so what they have are pop-outs, and you're probably aware of the pop-outs where, you have angled parking and you bring the street out. you bring the street out, and you can put in like little cafes and this sort of thing. I have two areas I really want to focus on. I'm sharing some of your angst about 6th Street and Beaumont Avenue. But I do think of two potential home runs are on 8th Street from Beaumont Avenue to Magnolia. So I've got a couple of pictures here just to kind of refresh your memory. But I do think that's a winner. You could get a shopping district, and it doesn't have to be that much to really get people in. You'd be surprised. I go over to Calamasa, and there's a little tiny shopping plaza off of Myrtlewood, and that thing is on fire. I mean, they just have like a sushi bar, they have a house restaurant, and everybody can't wait to go there. There's good parking, and you access the parking primarily off Myrtlewood. So imagine 8th Street, you know, where you could turn right on 8th Street. You're going north on Beaumont, you turn right, and right there you could have a little shopping district there for that one block up to Magnolia. And then I see another potential at Magnolia until I heard Commissioner Smith bringing up Orange Street. That might be better. And so you look at either Magnolia or Orange. It's just a small retail where you get restaurants, a tailor, you know, that kind of stuff. And then on 7th Street, is it or is it not a street? But I think you've all been down to downtown Palm Springs. You know where they have Tinker's and they have the La Plaza. You know where that is?
No.
Okay, so can you imagine 7th Street where you have La Plaza, so that sort of becomes a hub, and then you have La Plaza on either side, and then on 8th Street you have essentially a village district like you see in Montrose, and so I'll just start shipping this off, and then also the other part I have is you know Yucaipa. I like what Yucaipa did was. Ship it up there. You guys keep it, all right? Don't worry about it. You know, do it on your whatever. Okay. So the final. Well, I better just focus for a minute here. The thing about Yucaipa, and I think Riverside did this, is they set up a street system. So you know we're going to create angled parking, and again, if you have the parking structures, for example, on 6th Street, you can maybe you should consider not having people park on 6th Street. Near the 5 Points area, right? Just get rid of all that. Get a parking structure, or parking lots. Okay, so that's a key. But the final point is that if you can get a street plan, an overlay, and then when people transfer ownership or they transfer the use, like you have a landlord and it's going from off-road vehicle store to martial arts, and now it's going into indoor golf store or something like that. But when it changes use, you can trigger application of this street system, your street grid. And Riverside did it. It took them about 300 years. I mean, on University Avenue, they're still doing it. I mean, it's, we'll have to reincarnate to see the final,
You're losing them.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's my final point, is that maybe get that street system. That is number one on the radio dial. There's no parking. And I'm still haven't figured out what to do with the northeast corner of Beaumont Avenue, 6th Street. I mean, that's the poor guy with the sign, trying to get people in the parking. I would love to patronize the area, but there's no parking there. Would the city consider reaching out there for more public facilities? Some people, they go off the deep, they put a city hall there on the corner, right? I'm not going to go there, but I do think that you're on the right track if you get a little retail district on 8th Street, Orange Street, and don't forget getting those parking lots and parking structures. So I'm just sort of cheering you on here, run a few more pitches. So thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other?
I don't have any requests, no.
Can't turn you down.
Sure you could. Lloyd White, Beaumont. I checked, and there's still 2 other council members here, so I can't give too much of my opinion here. But I did want to say that when we started this process, probably more than a year ago, we selected your group because we thought that you would provide the public input component that we really needed. And I just wanted to thank you and let you know that I appreciate what you have done to bring the public along the way. I know at the early going, it was a little bit difficult, not a lot of people responding, but I think building the task force committee and then doing your surveys and doing all of the public outreach has provided us with a really good solution. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. No other? Is there anyone that wishes to speak?
I just have a question.
Come forward, please.
My name's Todd Keene. I live in Beaumont. I was just wondering, are they planning on doing an underpass at Pennsylvania Avenue? It is? Okay, because I never have seen the plan, underpass like they did in Banning, that type of a setup? Yeah. Okay, good. That answers my question. Thanks. Yeah, I did.
Is that it? All right, if there's no other comments, I'm going to close.
Add under my director comments while we have everyone here.
Absolutely.
The city of Beaumont is starting the process with the county of Riverside for the 5-year consolidated plan for the CDBG home and ECG funds. So we have some surveys in the back, but we recommend and we request that you go online. It's on our website under our CDBG webpage, which is beaumontca.gov/CDBG, and start filling out those surveys. That helps the county and the city know where you want those CDBG funds to be spent as those applications come in the next few months. But I'm trying to outreach to everyone at every meeting and let everyone know we have paper copies here at City Hall, but we also have the online survey, and we're going to start getting that out through social media in the coming weeks as well. So
Can I clarify just for some that what the CDBG?
I apologize. CDBG is the Community Development Block Grants, and we participate with the county on ECG and home, and I don't have that full acronym, so I apologize. But for the city, the main one is the Community Development Block Grants, and so it's funds that each city receives as part of the county, as we're a participating city under the county that goes for low-income improvements, and so we're looking at priorities to bring back to our council on what are the priorities you'd like those funds spent on. So those surveys are out there. And so I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Do we need a motion from the commission or anything? Okay. All right. It's going to take me 5 minutes to end this thing. Adjournment of the joint meeting of the Beaumont Planning Commission, General Plan Task Force, and Economic Development Committee of August 14th. Closed at